I'm Melanie, and if you've ever trusted someone so much that their betrayal cut deeper than any wound, then maybe you'll understand me tonight. Please, before I begin, hit that subscribe button, because what I'm about to tell you isn't just a story. It's a warning, a lesson in love, greed, and how a single moment can rip your entire world apart. When I first met Anthony, I believed he was everything a woman could ask for. Handsome, charming, attentive. And me? I wasn't just any woman. I had inherited a mansion, a thriving business, and enough wealth to never worry about tomorrow. Yet in my heart, I wanted something money couldn't buy. A family. Anthony knew how to make me feel adored. He praised my generosity, admired my ambition, and promised he'd stand by me forever. I believed him. Oh, how blindly I believed him. The truth? He was standing by me, but only as long as my wealth kept him warm. At first, the cracks were so small I dismissed them. Nights when he claimed he was working late. Phone calls he stepped outside to answer. His eyes, once soft when he looked at me, now flickering with a distraction I couldn't name. I told myself, Melanie, you're just overthinking. Pregnancy makes you emotional. I wanted to believe in him more than I trusted my own instincts. But deep down, a storm was already gathering. One that would break at the very moment I needed him most. And it happened. At the hospital. Pregnancy is supposed to bring couples closer. That's what I believed. I imagined Anthony rubbing my swollen feet, whispering about baby names, holding me when the nights felt heavy. Instead, I found myself growing lonelier each day. Anthony was absent, physically present, yes, but his soul seemed elsewhere. At first, I told myself he was stressed. I had overheard him once on the phone, speaking low, his tone strangely tender. "Don't worry, babe," he said. My heart skipped. Babe? I tried to shake it off. Maybe it was a colleague, a slip of the tongue. But when I asked, he snapped, "Melanie, not everything is about you. Stop being paranoid." That cut deeper than I admitted, but I didn't know then that my paranoia was the only thing keeping me sane, because another woman was already in the picture. Her name was Vanessa, though I didn't know it at the time. Vanessa was beautiful in a fragile, needy way, the kind of beauty that begged for protection. She wasn't wealthy, she wasn't established, but she had something Anthony craved more than loyalty: vulnerability. Anthony loved playing the savior, the hero. With me, he never got that chance. I was too strong, too independent. With Vanessa, he could be the knight in shining armor. I didn't know about her until later, but looking back, the signs were everywhere. Anthony's sudden business trips, the credit card bills with unfamiliar charges, a gold bracelet I found in his car, delicate, not my style. When I asked, he laughed. "Oh, that's for you, Mel. I was going to surprise you." But he never gave it to me. Then came the day I went into labor. The contractions hit hard and fast, waves of pain that made me clutch Anthony's arm. "It's time," I whispered. He looked startled, as though fatherhood had crept up on him unexpectedly. But he rushed me to the hospital, kissed my forehead, and said, "I'll be here. Always. Always." 2 hours later, he was gone, and where I found him would change everything I thought I knew about love, family, and betrayal. Inside the labor room, I cried, screamed, breathed through the pain, alone. Nurses rushed in and out, but Anthony, he was nowhere. I told myself he had stepped out for coffee. Maybe he was too nervous, but as the hours dragged, a gnawing fear grew inside me. My body was breaking open to bring our child into the world, and the man who swore to love me forever wasn't at my side. Finally, when the pain dulled and my baby was being cared for by the nurses, I couldn't take it anymore. I tore off the monitoring wires, pushed myself off the bed, and staggered into the hallway in my hospital gown. That's when I saw it. The door. Half open. A sliver of light spilling out. And inside, the voices. His voice. Anthony. And another voice. A woman's. My heart hammered so hard I thought I'd faint. What I heard next didn't just shatter my heart, it nearly destroyed my soul. I will never forget the sound of that door creaking open. It wasn't loud, just the faintest groan of old hinges, but to me, it was the crack that split my entire life into two pieces, before and after. My bare feet padded against the cold hospital tiles as I leaned toward the opening. My body still trembled from hours of labor, my gown clinging to my skin, damp with sweat. I should have been holding my newborn in my arms, whispering promises of love and safety. Instead, I stood in a dim hallway, clutching the wall for support, listening to whispers that felt like knives carving into my chest. At first, I heard only Anthony's voice. Vanessa, stop crying. This is exactly what we planned. The name hit me like an electric shock. Vanessa. Who was she? And then, her voice, soft, shaky, desperate. But Anthony, this is her child. She just gave birth. How can we? Anthony cut her off sharply. Don't you dare get weak on me now. We've come too far. You think I stayed with Melanie because of love? No. I stayed because of her money, her mansion, her business. Everything she has will one day belong to us. Don't ruin this. It was like my heart stopped beating in that moment. The man I trusted, the man I gave everything to, had been playing me like a fool all along. I pressed closer, careful not to make a sound. My hands shook, but I couldn't stop listening. Vanessa's voice quivered, almost childlike. But she gave birth to a girl, and mine's a boy. What if someone notices? What if... Anthony chuckled. Not with joy, not with nervousness, but with cold calculation. No one will notice. Babies look alike. The doctors, the nurses, they won't question it. All they'll see is a crying newborn. We'll swap them. Melanie gets the boy. You and I keep the secret. When the time is right, that boy will inherit everything she owns. And you, Vanessa, you'll finally have the life you deserve. I felt my knees buckle. The wall was the only thing keeping me from collapsing. They weren't just betraying me. They were planning to erase my daughter from my life, to throw her away like garbage, Vanessa whimpered. But where will we take her? What about Melanie's little girl? Anthony's voice turned darker, sharper. Out. We'll leave her outside the hospital. Somewhere no one will connect her to us. She'll be just another abandoned child, lost in the system. Do you understand? No one can ever know she was Melanie's. I gasped softly, my hand flying to my mouth. My child. My innocent baby girl. They wanted to discard her like she was nothing. The tears came hot and fast, blurring my vision. My chest ached so violently it felt like my ribs might crack. I couldn't breathe. And then, Anthony said something that burned itself into my memory forever. Melanie thinks she's so smart, so successful, but in the end she's nothing without me. I own her, and soon, everything she owns will belong to us. That was the moment I stopped being a wife. I became a mother fighting for her child and a woman ready for revenge. The hallway spun. I wanted to burst into the room, scream at them, claw at Anthony's face until he confessed. But my instinct screamed louder. Don't. Not now. If you rush in, you'll lose everything. Your baby. Your chance at justice. So I backed away, slowly, carefully, my heart pounding like a war drum. I stumbled back toward my room, clutching the walls, my mind racing. The image of my baby girl, tiny, fragile, helpless, haunted me. Somewhere in this hospital, she lay vulnerable to their wicked scheme. I couldn't let them succeed. By the time I reached my bed, my body was trembling so violently that a nurse rushed in, alarmed. "Mrs. Melanie, you shouldn't be up." "Please lie down." I forced myself to stay calm, to keep the storm inside hidden, but my voice cracked as I asked, "My baby, my little girl, where is she? Is she safe?" The nurse smiled gently, not knowing the nightmare unfolding. "She's in the nursery for now. Don't worry, we're taking good care of her." Relief washed over me, but only for a moment, because I realized something chilling. Anthony wasn't just plotting, he was capable of doing it. And if I didn't act fast, my daughter would vanish forever. That night, as the hospital quieted and the fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, I lay awake, my newborn placed briefly in my arms. Her tiny fingers curled around mine, and I silently swore, "They will not take you from me, not while I breathe." But I had no idea the lengths I'd have to go to protect her, or the revenge that destiny was already setting into motion. My hands trembled as I held my newborn daughter close to my chest. Her soft cries filled the sterile room, and I tried to hush her, though it was really myself I was trying to calm. My mind was a battlefield, chaos spinning faster with every second. They want to throw her away. Those words echoed in my head like the clang of a bell in an empty church. My husband, the man who once swore vows of love and loyalty, was planning to rip my child from me, to erase her existence. And if I didn't act quickly, my daughter would be gone before I ever got to truly hold her. The nurse came in again, checking my vitals. She smiled kindly, oblivious to the storm raging inside me. "You need to rest, Mrs. Melanie. You've lost a lot of blood, and your body must heal." I nodded faintly, clutching my baby tighter. Rest? How could I rest when a wolf was circling outside my door? Anthony hadn't come to see me in hours. That alone was a crime in my eyes. But now, after what I'd overheard, every second he was away felt like another step in his monstrous plan. The nurse reached out. "We'll keep your little girl in the nursery so you can sleep." Panic surged through me like fire. "No!" I cried out, startling even myself. My voice cracked, desperate. "She stays with me. I need her." The nurse hesitated, then gave a sympathetic nod. "Of course, if that's what you want." I couldn't let her out of my sight, not for a moment. Not while Anthony was somewhere nearby with Vanessa, plotting my baby's disappearance. When the nurse left, I whispered to my daughter, my tears dripping onto her blanket. "I'll protect you. I swear it. No one will hurt you, not even him." But swearing wasn't enough. I needed a plan. I thought about running, just grabbing my baby and fleeing the hospital barefoot, bleeding, broken. But where would I go? Anthony knew every place connected to me, my home, my business, even my closest friends. He'd find me. No, I had to be smarter. I had to outthink him, and then it hit me. The hospital staff. Anthony might manipulate me, but he couldn't control everyone. If I told them, if I explained what I heard, maybe they could protect my daughter. But then doubt crept in. Would they believe me? A delirious woman, fresh out of labor, babbling about baby swaps and betrayal? Anthony could easily twist it, make me look unstable. If I moved too soon, I'd lose everything. If I waited too long, I'd lose her. I sat in that fragile balance for what felt like hours, my ears straining for footsteps. And then there it was, a shuffle, a whisper. I froze, clutching my baby close, and turned toward the slightly ajar door. Shadows danced across the floor, stretching long and thin. And then his voice. "Anthony, is it done?" I held my breath. Another voice, Vanessa's, answered. "Not yet." The nurse wouldn't take the baby. She insisted Melanie keeps her. "Damn it," Anthony hissed. "She's making this harder than it needs to be." My heart hammered so violently I was sure they'd hear it. I pressed my lips to my baby's head, whispering silently, "Stay quiet. Please stay quiet." Then came the sound that broke my fragile control. Anthony's footsteps approaching the door. I panicked. With trembling speed, I slid off the bed, clutching my baby, and shuffled toward the bathroom. My stitches screamed, pain tearing through me, but adrenaline carried me forward. I closed the bathroom door as softly as I could, sinking against it, holding my daughter close. Her tiny breath tickled my skin. The room went silent. Then, the creak of the door opening. "Melanie?" Anthony's voice was sugar-coated venom. "Are you awake, darling?" I bit my lip, forcing myself not to answer. His footsteps moved inside. I imagined him scanning the room, searching the bed, the corners. My whole body tensed. Then he laughed softly. "Sleeping, huh? That's good. You'll need your strength." Vanessa's voice followed, hushed. "What now?" "We wait," Anthony whispered. "Tonight we'll handle it. She won't suspect a thing." My blood went cold. Tonight. They were going to strike tonight. The door clicked shut. I waited several agonizing minutes before daring to breathe. My body sagged against the bathroom wall, drenched in sweat. I looked down at my daughter. Her wide eyes stared up at me, innocent and trusting. "No," I whispered fiercely. "They won't touch you. Not tonight. Not ever." That's when I decided, if no one would save me, I'd save myself. I wiped my tears, stood shakily, and gathered the few things in the room. A blanket, my phone, my baby's ID tag. I didn't know exactly where I was going, but I knew I couldn't wait here like prey. I opened the bathroom door carefully and peered into the room. Empty. I crept to the hallway, heart pounding. The hospital at night was eerily quiet. Dim lights flickered above, and the smell of disinfectant clung to the air. Every shadow felt like it was watching me. But I moved anyway. Step by step, I wasn't just walking away from a room. I was walking away from the life Anthony thought he controlled. I reached the end of the hallway, and that's when I nearly collided with a nurse. She gasped. "Mrs. Melanie, you shouldn't be up." I swallowed my fear. "Please," I whispered urgently. "Don't let anyone take my baby. Not even my husband. He's trying to hurt us." The nurse blinked, clearly confused. "What do you mean?" But before I could explain, a voice boomed down the hall. "Melanie!" "Anthony." His voice dripped with false concern, but I knew the monster behind it. The nurse glanced between us, uncertain. "Is everything okay?" Anthony strode closer, his eyes sharp. "Everything's fine. My wife's just exhausted. I'll handle it." He reached for me. Instinct took over. I tightened my grip on my baby, stepped back, and shouted with every ounce of strength I had, "Don't touch us!" The hallway froze. The nurse's eyes widened. Anthony's expression cracked for a moment, pure rage flickering before he masked it again. "Melanie," he said softly, like coaxing a frightened animal. "You're confused. You need rest," but I wasn't confused anymore. I had never been more certain in my life. I looked at the nurse, my voice shaking but firm. "Please, keep him away from us." "He's lying." The nurse hesitated, then nodded slowly. "Sir, please step back." Anthony's jaw tightened, his fists clenching at his sides. But he obeyed, for now. That night, in that dim hallway, I realized something important. I couldn't fight this battle alone. I needed allies. I needed proof. And above all, I needed to outsmart the man who thought he owned me. I kissed my daughter's forehead and whispered to her, "We'll survive this, baby. And when the time comes, he'll regret underestimating us." My legs still trembled from the confrontation in the hallway. Every step back toward my hospital room felt like walking on shattered glass, but I didn't care. I had done it, For the first time, I had looked Anthony in the eye and said no. That word was going to cost me, but it was also going to save me. The nurse wheeled me back into the room and whispered gently, "I'll make sure no one disturbs you tonight. I'll be at the desk down the hall. If anything happens, ring the bell." Her kindness nearly undid me. I wanted to collapse into her arms and spill everything. The lies, the cheating, the horror of what Anthony and Vanessa had planned. But I held back. I needed more than sympathy. I needed evidence. So instead I whispered, "Thank you," and clutched my baby tighter. When the door closed, I sank into the bed. My daughter's tiny fingers curled around mine. She didn't know the storm outside these walls. She didn't know that her own father had already written her off as trash. That thought lit a fire in me. He will never win. The next morning, Anthony came back. He brought flowers, chocolates, and his rehearsed smile. "Good morning, my love," he said sweetly. "How are you feeling?" I stared at him, silent. He put the flowers on the nightstand, leaned down as if to kiss me, but I turned my face away. His smile faltered for half a second before he recovered. I saw it then, the cracks. No matter how charming his mask was, he couldn't hide his frustration when I didn't play along. "Melanie," he sighed, sitting in the chair beside the bed. "You've been under so much stress. You must have misheard things last night." I raised my eyebrows. "Oh? Misheard you saying you'd throw my daughter away?" His jaw clenched. "That's ridiculous. Do you hear yourself?" "Yes," I snapped, louder than I intended. For once, I hear myself clearly. The baby stirred at my tone, and I softened immediately, rocking her gently. Anthony leaned forward, his voice dropping. "You're exhausted. You're bleeding. You're not thinking straight. Let me take care of things." I looked him dead in the eyes. "You'll never take care of her. Not while I breathe." In that moment, I made a decision. If I couldn't expose Anthony with words, I'd expose him with proof. But to do that, I needed time. And I needed allies who weren't afraid of him. Later that day, when Anthony finally left the hospital to take care of some business, I seized my chance. I asked for the head nurse, a stern-looking woman named Margaret with silver hair pulled into a bun. She had eyes that had seen decades of secrets, lies, and tragedies within these walls. When she entered, I took a deep breath. "Margaret, I need your help. And I need you to believe me, no matter how insane this sounds." Her brow furrowed. "Go on." I clutched my baby tighter, tears blurring my vision. "My husband. He's trying to switch my baby. He wants to replace her with another child, and he's working with another woman here in the hospital." Her eyes narrowed, but she didn't dismiss me outright. Instead, she said, "Do you have proof?" "No," I admitted. "But I heard them. I heard their plan." Margaret sighed, crossing her arms. "Mrs. Melanie, in this line of work, I've seen every kind of family betrayal imaginable. I'll keep an eye out, but you'll need more than words to fight him." I nodded fiercely. "Then help me get proof." That was the beginning of an unlikely alliance. Me, the desperate wife, and Margaret, the nurse who had seen too much to doubt me entirely. That night, when Anthony returned, Margaret made sure another nurse was always present in the room. He couldn't corner me alone. His smile was tight, his patience fraying. "I want some private time with my wife," he demanded. Margaret folded her arms. "Hospital policy requires staff present during patient recovery, especially when patients feel unsafe." Anthony's glare could have cut glass, but Margaret didn't flinch. I silently thanked her with my eyes. Days passed. I recovered slowly, but I never let go of my baby. Margaret discreetly kept me informed. One night, she whispered, "I've seen the woman. The one you described. She came asking about you. Said she was family, but I sent her away." My stomach dropped. Vanessa. She was circling closer, like a vulture waiting for the kill. That night, I pretended to sleep while Margaret placed a small recording device, her own, under my bed. If Anthony slipped up, even once I'd have it on tape. It didn't take long. The next morning, Anthony stormed in, frustrated. He thought I was asleep. He leaned over me and muttered under his breath, "You'll regret making me wait." Tonight, Vanessa and I will finish this, whether you like it or not. I kept my eyes shut, heart racing. Every word etched itself into my mind. Later, Margaret retrieved the recorder and played it back. His words, cold and undeniable, filled the room. Tears spilled down my cheeks. "It's real. It's all real." Margaret squeezed my hand. "Then we'll protect you. But you need to think long term. He won't stop until he gets what he wants." I nodded. "Then I won't stop either." That was the moment my fear transformed into something sharper. Something stronger. Revenge. Over the next few days, I carefully crafted my next moves. I called my lawyer, secretly on a hospital phone when Anthony wasn't around. I explained everything, every detail of his betrayal. "I want full custody," I whispered, "and I want a restraining order. But I can't let him know I'm planning this." "Not yet." My lawyer agreed to begin discreetly gathering evidence, financial records, surveillance tapes, even background checks on Vanessa, and the things they found. Vanessa had a criminal record: fraud, theft, manipulation. She had bled men dry before, and now she had her claws in Anthony. Suddenly, their entire plan made sense. Anthony wasn't just cheating. He was being played too. But I didn't feel pity. No. If anything, I felt sharper, more focused. They had plotted to throw my daughter away like garbage. For that, I would destroy them both. One night, as I rocked my baby to sleep, I whispered, "They think they're the hunters. But they don't know who they married. They don't know who your mother is. I will burn every bridge they try to cross, and when they fall, you and I will stand tall." The first real crack came 2 weeks later, when I was finally discharged. Anthony insisted on driving me home. I agreed, smiling sweetly, but inside I was steel. As he drove, he reached for my hand. "Melanie, things will be better now. I promise." I pulled away. "Save your promises for Vanessa." His jaw clenched, but he didn't answer. He didn't know it yet, but I already had proof. I already had allies. And soon, I'd have the law on my side. That night, as I lay in my own bed for the first time since the hospital, I stared at the ceiling and planned. Every detail, every step. Step 1, protect my daughter. Step 2, collect undeniable proof. Step 3, expose Anthony and Vanessa for who they really were. And finally, Step 4, make them regret underestimating me. As my daughter slept peacefully beside me, I whispered the vow that would carry me through the storm. They wanted to destroy us, but I'll make sure it's them who are destroyed instead. And for the first time since this nightmare began, I smiled, because revenge wasn't just an idea anymore. It was already in motion. Now I had learned one brutal truth. Silence was my greatest weapon. If Anthony thought I was broken, exhausted, too weak from childbirth to notice what was happening around me, then so be it. Let him underestimate me. Let Vanessa smirk behind my back, because all along I was watching. I was listening. And I was preparing. They thought they had swapped my baby and stolen my fortune, but the game had just begun. After both children were home with me, my mansion had turned into something new. During the day it was chaos. Nannies moving around, bottles clinking, the faint cries of my little girl and boy filling the halls. But at night, when the house fell quiet, my mind sharpened like a blade. Anthony often claimed he was working late. He thought I never questioned it, But I knew. His phone buzzed with Vanessa's messages, her name carefully saved under a male colleague's contact. His late arrivals carried the faint trace of perfume that wasn't mine. I smiled politely, tucked the babies into their cribs, and let him believe I was the same naive wife he had always known. But behind that smile, something darker was growing. One evening, after tucking the children in, I made my first call. "Melanie, do you have any idea how much you're sitting on?" My lawyer, Mr. Garrison, whispered through the phone. "I know exactly how much," I replied, pacing the floor of my bedroom. "That's why I need you to secure everything. My businesses, the mansion, even the trust funds. I want Anthony nowhere near them," he sighed. "This won't be easy. You signed power of attorney for him last year, remember?" I froze. My breath caught. How could I have forgotten? Anthony had begged me to sign those papers while I was pregnant, convincing me it was just for convenience. "He's been planning this a long time," I whispered. "Yes, but..." Mr. Garrison's voice lowered. "He's sloppy. If he tries to misuse those powers, and if we can catch him conspiring with another woman to defraud you, he won't just lose access. He'll face criminal charges." A chill ran down my spine. For the first time, I realized this wasn't just about betrayal. It was about survival. The next step was less legal, more dangerous. I hired a private investigator, a woman named Carla, sharp-eyed and discreet. She met me in a cafe 2 towns over where no one would recognize me. She slid a file across the table. "Vanessa isn't who you think she is," Carla said. "She has a history, gold digging, moving from one wealthy man to another. Lawsuits, quiet settlements, and now she's got her claws in your husband." I flipped through photos. Vanessa in restaurants with men twice her age. Vanessa signing documents outside law firms. Vanessa entering cheap motels with Anthony. My stomach turned, but I forced myself to keep looking. Evidence. That was all this was. Pieces of a puzzle I would soon use to destroy them both. At home, Anthony grew bolder. He started making little comments about our son, praising him loudly in front of me, while barely acknowledging my daughter. "She'll be fine," he'd shrug when I fussed over her. "But this boy, he's the future. He'll carry our name, Melanie," I wanted to scream. "She's mine, you monster. Both of them are mine." But instead, I bit my tongue. One night, as he rocked the boy to sleep, I overheard him whisper, "Everything will be ours soon, little man. Mommy doesn't need to know the details." I held my breath in the hallway, fists clenched so tight my nails dug into my palms. Every word was fuel for my fire. It was a Friday night when Anthony crossed another line. We sat at the long oak table, babies asleep upstairs, when he casually said, "Melanie, have you considered stepping back from your businesses? You've done enough. Maybe it's time to let someone else handle things?" I kept my face neutral. "Like you?" He smiled smugly. "Exactly, or maybe we hire a co-director. Someone with a fresh perspective. Vanessa?" I asked, my voice sharp enough to cut glass. His fork clattered against the plate. He looked up, startled. "What did you say?" I tilted my head and smiled sweetly. "Nothing, darling. Just a guess." He laughed awkwardly, but his eyes gave him away. He knew I knew. And now I knew he knew. The silent war had begun. That night, I crept downstairs when I heard his muffled voice. He was on the phone. "She suspects something. We need to be careful. But don't worry. Once the paperwork goes through, everything's ours. The mansion, the business, the accounts. She won't have a penny left." My knees almost buckled. He was planning to erase me completely. I pressed my back against the wall, heart pounding, and let the words sink in. If he succeeded, my children and I would be left with nothing. But he underestimated one thing. I had already started moving pieces on the board. And soon the trap would spring shut, Mr. Garrison and Carla worked in silence with me. Every document Anthony signed, every message Vanessa sent, every meeting they held, it was all recorded, documented, preserved. I signed nothing new. I moved small amounts of money into accounts he couldn't touch. I updated my will, naming my daughter and son as sole heirs. And then, I waited. Anthony thought I was weak. Vanessa thought I was blind. But I was patient, because storms don't announce themselves with thunder first. They gather silently, and when they strike, they leave nothing standing. Anthony had no idea the storm was already forming around him. And soon, he would drown in it, and tonight everything ends. For years, I carried a secret so heavy it nearly crushed me. The memory of that night in the hospital, when I stumbled upon my husband and his mistress whispering about throwing my newborn daughter away like garbage. That single moment changed me forever. I didn't cry like a helpless victim. No, I gathered my strength, my broken heart hardening into steel. I saved my daughter from the jaws of their cruelty, raised both children as mine, and plotted for the day when their evil would be dragged into the light. Anthony thought he had fooled me. He believed his pretty lies, his empty apologies, his excuses about late nights at work were still enough to control me. He had no idea that every time he smirked at Vanessa across a dinner table, I had already been collecting proof. Every late-night phone call, recorded. Every money transfer he sent her, copied. And the most important of all, an old hospital nurse, long since retired, who remembered the night I nearly lost my baby. That woman gave me what I needed, a sworn testimony and, even better, a dusty old security tape that had been stored away, forgotten by the hospital but not by fate. The tape wasn't crystal clear, but you could hear them. Anthony's voice, low and cold, whispering to Vanessa. Once we switch the babies, Melanie will never know. We'll dump her daughter outside, and when our boy grows up, her entire fortune will be his. Each time I replayed that tape, my blood boiled. They didn't just betray me. They tried to erase my daughter from existence. That was unforgivable, and so I waited for the perfect night. Not in rage, but with patience, because revenge is sweetest when it's served in front of an audience. The opportunity came sooner than I expected. Anthony's company was celebrating a merger, and Vanessa, always desperate to play the queen, planned a glamorous party at a rented ballroom. She invited everyone, friends, business partners, family, even journalists. Perfect. That night, I dressed carefully, wearing a dark velvet gown, the kind of elegance that speaks without words. I walked into the ballroom with my head high, my daughter holding one hand, my son holding the other. People whispered. They always whispered about us, the perfect family, the powerful businessman, his loyal wife, their children. But tonight, the whispers would turn into gasps. Anthony spotted me and plastered on that fake smile he'd perfected over the years. "Melanie," he said smoothly, kissing my cheek for the cameras. Vanessa stood nearby, sparkling in her red dress, her hand resting a little too possessively on Anthony's arm. She smirked at me, thinking she had won. I smiled back, calm and deadly, because I already knew what was coming. The evening moved along, filled with clinking glasses and shallow laughter. When Anthony stepped onto the stage to give his speech, I stood quietly near the front, waiting. He raised his champagne glass, thanking the crowd, boasting about his success, pretending to be the man everyone admired. And then, with a flick of my hand, the ballroom's giant screen behind him lit up. At first, people thought it was part of the celebration. But then the audio crackled, and Anthony's voice filled the room. Not his smooth, rehearsed voice, the raw, venomous tone he had used that night at the hospital. The recording played loud and clear. "Melanie doesn't matter. We'll throw her baby girl away like trash. Our boy will inherit everything. She'll never know the difference." The room froze. Gasps, murmurs, stunned silence. Every face turned toward Anthony, then to me. Vanessa's wine glass slipped from her hand, shattering on the floor. Anthony stammered, This is fake. Some kind of trick." But the more he denied, the more the truth strangled him. I stepped forward, my voice steady, carrying through the stunned crowd. "Fake? Then explain why the hospital's retired nurse remembers you both begging her to keep quiet. Explain why the original security footage is stamped with the hospital's seal. Explain why my daughter—" I motioned to the little girl clutching my gown, her wide, innocent eyes watching. "Is standing here alive, despite your plan to throw her away." The audience erupted. Some shouted in outrage, others whispered in horror. Cameras flashed, recording every second. Anthony's carefully built image shattered like glass. Vanessa tried to slink away, but I wasn't finished. "And you," I said sharply, pointing at her. "You thought you could steal my life, my child, my future? You thought being greedy and cruel would crown you queen. Look around. This is your kingdom now. Ruin, shame, disgrace." Security guards, instructed by me beforehand, blocked the exits. No easy escape tonight. Anthony's business partners were already pulling away, disgust etched on their faces. One of them muttered loudly enough for the room to hear, "If he'd betray his wife and child, he'd betray us too." Contracts, deals, money, all slipping from Anthony's grasp in real time. But I wasn't here just to humiliate. I was here to take back everything they tried to steal. With a calm I had practiced for years, I pulled a folder from my purse and tossed it onto the stage at Anthony's feet. Inside, divorce papers, child custody claims, and financial documents proving years of fraudulent transfers he had made to Vanessa. "Ironclad evidence. You wanted my fortune," I said, my voice ringing through the silence. "Instead, you lose everything. Your business, your money, your family, all gone. Because you tried to destroy a mother's love for her child." Anthony's face drained of color. Vanessa swayed on her heels, realizing the world she built on lies had collapsed. And then, I did something that left the crowd stunned. I bent down, picked up my daughter, and with my son by my side, I turned away from the chaos. I didn't need to watch Anthony crumble. His ruin was inevitable, already set in motion. My revenge wasn't in seeing him beg. It was in showing the world the truth, and walking away with everything that mattered. My children, my dignity, and my strength. As the doors of the ballroom swung shut behind me, I breathed in the night air. For the first time in years I felt free. My children laughed softly, holding on to me as if they knew the battle was finally over. Revenge hadn't just given me justice, it had given me peace. And in that peace, I found something far greater than what Anthony or Vanessa could ever steal. The future I chose, the family I protected, and the strength I would never again hide. Because I am Melanie. The woman they tried to break, the mother they tried to rob, the wife they tried to erase. And tonight, I proved that no betrayal is greater than a mother's love.